Welcome to Wellness Waves Podcast.
Okay, you've definitely been there, haven't you?
Yeah.
You're scrolling online, maybe listening to different people, and it's just conflicting advice everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
1 minute, it's carbs are terrible, cut them all out.
Right.
The next, someone else is saying, no, you need carbs for energy. And then there's the protein obsession. Like, you got to hit these huge numbers.
Yeah, the protein push is real.
And fats,
Yeah.
still kind of scary for a lot of people.
Right.
That old idea that eating fat just makes you fat.
It lingers, doesn't it?
It's just this whirlwind of info. It feels contradictory, and trying to figure out what to actually eat to feel good or, perform well or just have decent energy, it can feel totally overwhelming.
Absolutely. That feeling, that sense of information overload, it's super common. You get these isolated tips like cut carbs or more protein, but without the bigger picture.
Yeah, the context is missing.
Exactly. And that's where anxieties and, frankly, misconceptions about whole food groups start to build. It often leads people down paths with really unbalanced eating patterns that just aren't sustainable, Yeah. And maybe not even healthy long term.
Totally. And that's precisely why we wanted to do this deep dive. We're really aiming to, cut through all that noise, step back from the latest fad diet or the scary headlines.
Get back to basics.
Get back to the absolute fundamentals of how your body actually works, how it gets energy, how it builds itself. We're going right to the core, macronutrients.
Yeah, and our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to take the insights from our source material and really distill them, make them clear, understandable.
Actionable.
Actionable, exactly. Stuff that you listening right now can use immediately to feel more confident about your food choices.
Yeah, approach your plate knowing a bit more about what's going on.
So the source material we're drawing from today is excerpts from a podcast called Wellness Waves. And in these clips, we heard a conversation between Jessica, who's a nutrition coach, quite experienced, and James, a fitness trainer, very practical guy.
Okay.
And they were talking specifically about macronutrients, what they are, why they're so important, and tackling some of those exact myths and confusions we just mentioned.
They seem to really nail how understanding this stuff is just foundational, didn't they?
They really did. They argued it's key to fueling your body properly, whether you're just trying to get through a busy workday or you have serious performance goals. And that understanding, they said, it directly impacts how you choose your food, and it can really visibly improve energy, performance, all that.
And they jumped right into that confusion, didn't they? That thing about people cutting all carbs or just focusing purely on protein or being scared of fat.
Right away. They observed it in their own clients. And their core message, which they put out there right at the start, kind of became the theme for their whole chat, and really for our deep dive, too.
That's right.
That your body fundamentally needs all three carbs, protein, and fats in the right balance. That's how it functions best.
That feels like such a simple but powerful starting point.
Yes.
It just shifts the whole conversation, doesn't it? Away from cut this out or only eat that.
Exactly. It moves towards understanding how these things work together in your body. It's integrated, it's synergistic.
Okay, let's unpack this. So starting right at the beginning, what are macronutrients fundamentally? And according to the source, why is getting a grip on them so important for you?
Well, basically, macronutrients are the parts of food your body needs in the largest quantities. That's why they're called macro, meaning large.
Okay.
These are your carbohydrates, your proteins, and your fats. We usually talk about them separately from micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, which you need in much, much smaller amounts.
Tiny amounts.
But the macros, they're where you get the bulk of your energy, your calories, and also the main materials for building and repairing all your body tissues.
So if micronutrients are like the little screws and wires keeping the machine running smoothly,
Yeah.
macronutrients are more like the main fuel source and the actual building blocks of the machine itself, like the chassis and the engine parts.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. They provide the energy your body needs just to, exist. Breathing, thinking, heartbeat.
Basic functions.
Basic functions. And then also the energy for everything else you do all day long. And the source, Wellness Waves, really hammered this point home. Understanding them isn't just textbook knowledge, it's practical. It affects your daily life directly.
They connected it straight to things like, okay, how do you fuel your body for whatever you're asking it to do? Whether that's a hard workout or just getting through a mentally draining day at the office without face planting on your keyboard at 3 p.m.
Exactly. They highlighted how getting your macros right can seriously improve your performance, whatever that means for you. And beyond just performance, it helps you make smarter food choices, not just guessing or following some random rule you heard. And ultimately, yeah, it can lead to noticeable improvements in energy levels and just how well your body functions overall. James, the trainer in the source you mentioned, it affects everything from like how long you can last in a workout, your physical endurance, to how clearly you can think your cognitive function.
Wow. So it's not just about muscle or weight. It's about the whole system running efficiently. Your brain, your energy, everything.
Precisely, your whole operating system.
Mhm.
And they kept coming back to that main idea. Despite all the fads trying to demonize one group or another, your body evolved needing all three.
Carbs, protein, and fat.
Yep. So the real challenge, and what they focused on, isn't about eliminating any of them. It's about figuring out how to get the right amount of each one and, crucially, the right type of each one to support what you specifically need.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
And it brings us perfectly to the first macro, the one that's probably taken the biggest beating in like popular diet culture lately. Carbohydrates.
Oh, carbs, yeah. They're often the first thing people ditch when they want to lose weight or eat clean, whatever that means. The source even said they've been demonized for years.
Really?
But Jessica, the nutrition coach, she was really clear on this. Carbohydrates are your body's primary energy source, like #1 preferred fuel.
Primary. That sounds pretty important, like essential for moving, thinking, basically doing anything, right?
Yeah.
So how does that work? How do carbs actually become energy in the body?
Okay, so when you eat carbs, bread, pasta, fruit, vegetables, whatever your digestive system breaks them down into their simplest form, which is glucose.
Glucose. Okay, that's a type of sugar, right?
Yep, it's the basic sugar molecule that your cells use for energy. This glucose gets absorbed into your bloodstream. That's your blood sugar level going up after you eat.
Uh-huh.
And then your body can either use that glucose right away for immediate energy, or it can store it for later. The source specifically said this glucose fuels everything from daily activities to intense workouts. That covers a lot.
Okay, so eat carbs breaks down to glucose. Glucose is energy. Seems straightforward. But then the source immediately makes a super important point, the one that really helps clear up the confusion. They say not all carbs are the same.
This is the key takeaway about carbs from the source. You absolutely cannot lump them all together. They generally fall into two main types based on like their chemical structure and how your body handles them. Simple carbs and complex carbs.
Right, let's dig into that. Simple carbs first. What's their deal?
Simple carbs have a really basic structure, usually just 1 or 2 sugar units stuck together. Think sugars, basically.
Right.
Because they're so simple, your body breaks them down and digests them super fast.
Doesn't take much effort from your digestion.
Nope. Very little work required.
And what happens because they break down so fast?
Well, you get this really rapid flood of glucose into your bloodstream, like dumping a bucket of sugar water straight in.
Whoosh.
Yeah. And the source gives those classic examples, especially the processed ones. White bread, sugary drinks like soda, candy, pastries, that kind of thing.
Right. You eat like a handful of candy or a sweet pastry, and you feel that almost instant buzz, that quick hit of energy.
Exactly. It's a super fast energy boost because the glucose is available almost immediately. But, and this is the catch the source points out, it doesn't provide lasting fuel. That quick spike in blood sugar makes your body release insulin pretty quickly to deal with it, telling your cells to grab that glucose fast. But then often your blood sugar can drop just as fast or even overshoot on the way down.
The infamous sugar crash.
That's the one. You suddenly feel tired, maybe irritable, maybe even hungry again really soon after you ate. It's not sustained energy at all.
Okay, so simple carbs are like throwing gasoline on a fire, big whoosh of flame, but it burns out super quick, leaving you needing more fuel right away. So what about complex carbs? How are they different?
Well, they have a much more intricate structure, longer chains of sugar units all linked together. Think starches and fiber.
Okay, more complicated.
Yeah, and because they're more complex, your body has to work harder and take more time to break them down during digestion.
So this is a slower burn.
Exactly. A much slower, more gradual release of glucose into the bloodstream. Instead of that sharp spike and crash, you get a gentler, longer-lasting energy curve. Much more stable.
Okay.
This avoids those dramatic blood sugar swings. The source lists examples like oats, quinoa, brown rice, beans, lentils, and loads of vegetables.
Okay. So these are the ones that give you that steady, reliable energy, like putting a solid log on the fire instead of gasoline. It takes longer to catch, maybe, but it burns slow and steady, keeping you warm, or in this case, energized for a good while. The source said they keep you full longer, too.
That's a perfect analogy. That slow digesting energy keeps you fueled more consistently through the day, helping avoid those energy dips. Plus, Complex carbs often come packaged with fiber, which adds bulk and helps you feel fuller and more satisfied after eating, which can help manage your appetite.
This simple versus complex thing feels really, really important for understanding why some carb foods leave you feeling great and others leave you feeling, well, less great. And you've probably noticed this yourself, listener, right?
Yeah.
Think about it. How do you feel an hour or two after a sugary cereal versus, say, a bowl of oatmeal with fruit?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that spike and then the energy drain from the cereal? Do you feel more steady and satisfied for longer with the oatmeal? Just noticing those responses in your own body is huge.
It really is. It's about tuning into your personal energy and hunger signals. And speaking of complex carbs, the source gave special attention to fiber. It's technically a carb, right? But it acts differently.
Yeah, the source flagged that.
Yeah.
Technically a carbohydrate, but it doesn't really give us energy in the same way, does it?
No, not directly. Chemically, it fits the carb category, but the big difference is our bodies don't have the right enzymes to break fiber down into glucose for energy.
So it just kind of passes through.
Pretty much intact, yeah. It
Yeah.
gives you virtually no calories.
So if it's not giving us fuel, what's it doing? Why is it important?
Oh, it's crucial. The source really stressed this. Its role is vital for other things. It helps with digestion, adding bulk to your stool, which, keeps things moving regularly and prevents constipation.
Okay, digestive health.
Big time. And it's great for gut health because certain types of fiber act as prebiotics, basically food for the good bacteria living in your gut.
Ah, feeding the microbiome.
Exactly. And the source also highlighted its role in managing blood sugar.
How does fiber help with blood sugar if it's not sugar itself?
Well, when fiber is part of a meal, especially with other carbs, it slows down how quickly everything else gets digested and absorbed. It sort of forms this gel in your gut that slows the release of glucose into your bloodstream.
Oh, so it smooths out that curve even more, prevents the sharp spikes after eating.
Precisely. It leads to more stable blood sugar, more stable energy, better metabolic health overall.
Wow. So fiber is like the essential stage manager for your digestion and blood sugar.
Yeah.
Not the star performer giving the energy, but doing absolutely critical work behind the scenes so the whole show runs smoothly.
That's a fantastic way to think about it. It's doing all this regulatory and supportive work that's so beneficial. And when you think about the difference between, say, a can of soda, all simple sugar, no fiber, and a bowl of lentil soup, complex carbs, protein, and loads of fiber, it really drives home why the source says don't fear carbs, just choose wisely.
Yeah, they suggested the right question to ask is, what type of carbs am I eating?
Exactly. That one question changes everything. It pulls you out of that carbs are bad mindset and puts you into an empowered position. Which carbs are going to support my energy, my health, my goals? And the clear message is, go for the whole, fiber-rich, complex ones over the refined, sugary, simple ones most of the time.
Right. Better energy, better digestion, better blood sugar control. Plus, you get all the vitamins and minerals that usually come with those whole foods.
You got it. And then, for anyone listening who's active, who trains regularly, the source gives a really strong reason why cutting carbs super low is usually a bad idea.
Yeah, this seemed important, especially for athletes or even just people who exercise consistently.
Definitely. Your muscles heavily rely on stored carbs for fuel during activity. Your body stores glucose mainly in your muscles and liver as something called glycogen. Think of glycogen as your muscles' readily available onboard fuel tank.
So when you're working out, hard running, lifting, whatever your muscles are burning through that stored glycogen.
That's their preferred fuel for moderate to high intensity effort. It's the most efficient energy source. If those glycogen stores are low because you haven't eaten enough carbs, your muscles just don't have the juice they need to perform well.
And the source spelled out what happens then, right? The consequences.
Yeah, they listed a few key things. One is just plain fatigue. You'll hit the wall much faster during workouts and feel generally drained.
Makes sense.
Another is slower recovery. Your muscles need carbs after exercise, too, to refill those glycogen tanks and support the repair process. Not enough carbs means that recovery gets hampered.
So you stay sore longer, feel weaker next time.
Could be. And they also mentioned mental fog. Your brain loves glucose, too, remember? So low carb intake can affect concentration, focus, even mood.
Wow. Okay, so if your main fuel tank for both body and brain is low, everything's going to feel harder. Workouts suffer, recovery slows down, even thinking clearly gets tough. It really shows that for active people, carbs aren't just like optional, They're essential for actually doing the activity well and bouncing back from it.
It's
It's about fueling the engine for the job you're asking it to do.
absolutely. It's a core principle of sports nutrition that the source laid out very clearly. Enough carbs are non-negotiable for effective training and recovery.
Okay, speaking of fuel, and especially building and recovery, let's shift gears to the next macro. Protein. Often the superstar, right? The muscle builder. But the source said its job is much bigger than just muscles.
Protein is definitely vital for muscle repair and growth, no doubt, especially important after exercise. But yeah, the source emphasized its role in tons of other essential body processes like immune function. Your antibodies, the things fighting off germs, are made of protein.
Okay, so keeping you healthy.
Yep, and enzyme production. Enzymes are like the little workers that make almost all chemical reactions happen in your body: digestion, energy creation, everything. They're proteins.
Wow.
Plus, protein is involved in making some hormones and transporting things around your body, like oxygen in your blood.
So it's way more than just biceps. It's immunity, it's body chemistry, it's transport. What's protein actually made of? Like its basic parts?
Protein is made up of smaller units called amino acids. You can think of amino acids as the individual building blocks. There are 20 different types, and your body can link them together in all sorts of different sequences to build all the different proteins it needs for all those jobs. When you eat protein, your digestion breaks it back down into those amino acids.
And then your body absorbs those amino acids and uses them to build whatever it needs at that moment.
Exactly. They get into your bloodstream, travel around, and are used to repair muscle tissue that gets slightly damaged during exercise, or to build new muscle tissue if you're training for that. They're used to make new enzymes, new immune cells. It's this constant cycle of breakdown and rebuilding happening all the time.
Okay, so if amino acids are like different colored Lego bricks, protein in food is like a pre-built Lego model. Your body takes the model apart, gets the individual bricks, and then uses those bricks to build its own models, muscles, enzymes, whatever, where they're needed. Makes sense. Where did the source say we get these protein Legos?
They mentioned the two main categories. First, the ones most people think of, animal-based proteins.
Like chicken, turkey, fish, beef, pork, eggs, dairy milk, yogurt, cheese.
Exactly. Those are often called complete proteins because they usually contain all 9 of the essential amino acids, the ones your body can't make itself in good amounts.
Okay. And the other category?
Plant-based protein.
Like beans, lentils, chickpeas, tofu, tempeh, nuts, seeds, even some grains like quinoa.
Yep, all of those. And the source specifically said these plant options offer valuable nutrition too, which is important, right? It pushes back on the idea that you must eat meat to get enough protein.
Yeah, definitely.
Plant proteins often come with bonus fiber, healthy fats, vitamins, minerals, lots of good stuff. You might need to combine different plant sources throughout the day to make sure you get all the essential amino acids, as some plants are lower in one or two, but it's totally doable.
That's good to know for people wanting variety or eating plant-based. Now, the source hit on a really common myth about protein, something James, the trainer, brought up. What was that?
It's that idea that just eating tons and tons of protein, like multiple protein shakes a day, plus high protein, everything, will automatically make your muscles grow huge.
The more protein equals more muscle, guaranteed idea.
Exactly that. But the source clarified it really well. Protein provides the building blocks, yes, the amino acids your body needs for muscle repair and synthesis, but protein alone doesn't trigger muscle growth.
So what does?
The main trigger, the signal that tells your muscles, hey, you need to get bigger and stronger, is resistance training. Lifting weights, using bands, body weight exercises, consistently challenging your muscles.
Okay. So protein is like having top quality bricks and mortar delivered to a building site. But you need the construction crew, the resistance training, to actually break down the old structure a bit, muscle damage during workout, and then use those materials to build a bigger, stronger building, muscle growth during recovery. And you need the time off, the recovery, for the building to actually happen.
That's a brilliant analogy. It captures it perfectly. You need the stimulus from training, you need the energy from carbs and fats to fuel the work and the rebuilding, you need the protein building blocks, and you need rest for the adaptation to actually occur. They all work together.
It's the whole package, not just one ingredient.
Precisely. And the source also warned about going overboard with protein. It's not necessarily a case of more is always better indefinitely.
Right. What were the potential downsides they mentioned of having way too much?
Well, one potential issue is putting extra strain on your kidneys. When your body metabolizes protein, it creates waste products like urea that your kidneys have to filter out. Consistently eating super high amounts of protein can make the kidneys work harder. For people with healthy kidneys, it's usually fine within reasonable ranges, but for those with existing kidney issues, it could be a concern.
Okay. And what about the idea that extra protein just turns into muscle anyway?
Yeah, that's part of the myth. Your body will use protein for repair and building if there's a need, like after training. But if you're consistently eating way more protein than your body can actually use for those functions or for energy, the excess doesn't just magically become muscle.
So what happens to it?
Ultimately, the excess amino acids can get converted through different metabolic pathways and stored as body fat, just like excess carbs or fats would be. You can't force muscle growth just by flooding your system with protein without the right training stimulus and overall calorie balance.
So chasing some crazy high protein number might not only be unnecessary, potentially straining your kidneys, but it could also just end up being stored as fat anyway.
It could, yeah. It really highlights focusing on enough protein rather than just maximum protein. The source summed it up nicely. Aim to get sufficient protein consistently to support recovery, immune function, all that good stuff. Choose high-quality sources, whether animal or plant. But don't just fixate on a huge number. Think about your activity level, your goals.
And connecting that to you, the listener, your protein needs are going to be different if you're, say, training for a marathon versus recovering from surgery versus sitting at a desk all day, right? The source really implies it's personal.
Absolutely. Needs vary hugely based on activity, goals, even age and body size. It's about finding what's enough for you, not just blindly following a trend.
Okay, we've got carbs for energy, protein for building and function. Let's tackle the third one, the one that's maybe had the roughest ride in terms of public perception, fats.
Ah, dietary fats.
Okay.
Yeah, the source called them probably the most misunderstood macronutrient, and I think that's spot on. For decades, there was this intense fear, right? Eat fat, get fat. Low-fat everything was the mantra.
Totally. Fat-free cookies that were loaded with sugar instead.
Exactly, and the source just flat out says that's not entirely true. It pushes back hard against that old simplistic view.
It's amazing how sticky that low-fat message was. Even though the science has moved on so much, people still sometimes shy away from things like nuts or avocados because they're fatty.
It's a really persistent myth. Part of it might be because fats are more calorie-dense, 9 calories per gram versus 4 for carbs and protein. But just counting calories misses the point entirely. Fats do way more than just provide energy. The source makes it crystal clear. They are absolutely essential for tons of vital functions.
Okay, like what? What are some of those essential jobs fats do according to the source?
Well, for starters, hormone balance is a huge one. Many key hormones, like testosterone and estrogen and others involved in stress response and metabolism, are made from cholesterol, which comes from dietary fat.
Whoa, okay. Hormones.
Yep. And fats are fundamental to the structure of every single cell in your body, the outer membrane of every cell. It's mostly made of fats, specifically phospholipids.
Every cell membrane.
Every single one. So fats are literally part of your physical structure at the most basic level. And critically, the source highlighted brain function. Your brain is something like 60% fat.
60%, wow.
Yeah. Fats are crucial for building brain cells, for the myelin sheath that insulates nerve fibers and allows for fast signaling, essential for learning, memory, overall cognitive function.
So fats aren't just stored energy. They're literally building your brain and helping it work properly.
Absolute fundamental. And the source mentioned another key role, absorbing certain vitamins. Vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat-soluble, meaning you need to eat fat along with them in order to absorb them properly from your digestive system into your body. You could eat a giant salad full of vitamin K, but if you have zero fat dressing or other fat sources with it, you won't get much of that vitamin.
Okay, so fats are needed for hormones, cell structure, brain health, and absorbing other essential nutrients. That really does flip the script on the fat is bad idea.
Completely. It positions fat not as something to avoid, but as something essential you need to include. But, and here's the parallel with carbs, again, the source strongly emphasizes that the type of fat matters a lot. Just like not all carbs are created equal, not all fats are created equal either.
Right, so what are the right kinds of fats, according to the source? The healthy ones.
They list several great examples. Avocados, nuts like almonds and walnuts, seeds like chia and flax, olive oil, especially extra virgin and fatty fish like salmon or sardines.
These are generally the unsaturated fats, right?
Yeah.
Monounsaturated and polyunsaturated.
Yep.
Correct. Usually liquid at room temperature. And the source says these fats support heart health and metabolism. They can help improve cholesterol profiles, reduce inflammation, provide steady energy. These are the fats you want to be eating regularly.
Okay, the good guys. We should embrace these. What about the other side? The unhealthy fats the source warned us off.
The main ones they called out specifically were artificial trans fats.
Ah, the ones made in factories by messing with vegetable oils.
Yeah,
The stuff that used to be in, like, margarine sticks and a lot of processed junk food.
exactly. Often listed as partially hydrogenated oil. Thankfully, regulations have cut them down a lot, but you still need to be aware. And the source is blunt. They can lead to inflammation and serious health issues, period.
No redeeming qualities.
None whatsoever, according to pretty much all health authorities. They actively harm your cardiovascular system, raise bad LDL cholesterol, lower good HDL cholesterol, promote inflammation. Just bad news all around.
So the real fear of fat should be focused squarely on these artificial trans fats, not the healthy natural fats in foods like avocados or nuts.
That's the crucial distinction the source wants you to grasp. Don't fear fat, fear bad fat. Focus on getting plenty of the healthy unsaturated fats and actively avoid artificial trans fats. Saturated fats found in animal products and some tropical oils are usually advised in moderation, but the big emphasis from the source was embrace the unsaturated, ditch the artificial trans.
Got it. And within those healthy fats, the source highlighted one specific type as being extra beneficial, calling them game changers. Which ones were those?
Omega-3 fatty acids. They got a special mention for their powerful health effects.
Why game changers? What makes omega-3s so special?
Well, first, they're essential fatty acids. Your body can't make them. You have to get them from food. And they do some really important jobs that many people don't get enough of. The source pointed to brain health. They're major components of brain cell membranes, vital for development and ongoing function.
Okay, brain again.
Yep. And maybe even more famously, they're known for reducing inflammation throughout the body. Chronic inflammation is linked to so many major diseases.
Like heart disease, arthritis, maybe even some cancers.
Exactly. So fats that actively fight inflammation are incredibly valuable for long-term health.
Wow. Okay, omega-3s sound pretty critical. Where did the source say we can find these game changers?
The best-known sources are fatty fish salmon, mackerel, herring, sardines.
Samash fish, sometimes called?
Yeah, that's a good acronym. And for plant sources, they mention walnuts, flax seeds, ground are best for absorption, and chia seeds. The source emphasized that getting these isn't that hard.
Like eating fish twice a week, adding flax to your smoothie or oatmeal, snacking on walnuts?
Exactly. Small additions can make a big difference in your omega-3 intake. So the overall message on fats is really positive, actually. They're essential, not evil. Just focus on the quality. Choose whole food sources of unsaturated fats, avocados, nuts, seeds, olive oil, fatty fish, and consciously avoid those artificial trans fats in processed food.
Okay, wow. We've covered carbs as the main energy source, protein as the builder and repair crew, fats as the essential supporter for brain, hormones, and more. We know what they are, why we need them, but here's the big practical question, the one everyone asks. Now that we get the individual pieces, how do you, the listener, actually figure out the right balance of all three for your body, your life?
Right. This is where the source really brings it home, moving from definitions to application. They asked that exact question, how do people find the right balance? And the immediate answer was, look, there's no single magic formula, no one-size-fits-all percentage split.
It depends.
It absolutely depends, as they said. It depends entirely on you.
Okay, depends on what? What are the key things the source said influence your specific macro needs?
Several big ones. Your general lifestyle, are you sedentary most of the day or pretty active? Your specific fitness goals, are you trying to lose fat, build muscle, run a faster 5K, or just maintain health? And probably the biggest factor, your activity level and the type of activity you do.
They used a couple of really clear examples to show how activity changes things, right?
Yeah, they contrasted two very different types of athletes. First, someone training for, say, a marathon. Long-distance running.
Okay.
Their body's main demand is for sustained energy over hours. So they need a higher proportion of carbohydrates to fuel those long runs and constantly refill those glycogen stores they deplete. Carbs are king for them.
Makes sense. Can't run for hours without a lot of carb fuel.
Exactly. Now contrast that with someone whose main goal is building muscle and strength through regular weightlifting.
Okay, different goal, different activity.
Right. They still need carbs for energy during workouts and recovery, definitely. But their demand for protein is significantly higher because they need those amino acid building blocks to repair and build new muscle tissue in response to the lifting stimulus.
So the weightlifter probably needs a higher percentage of their calories from protein compared to the marathon runner, even though both are exercising.
Precisely. The specific goal and the type of stress placed on the body dictates the optimal balance. So you, listening now, need to think honestly. What does my week look like? Am I mostly sitting, walking, running, lifting? A mix. Your activity is probably the biggest dial influencing your personal macro needs.
And the source mentioned ways people try to manage this. Tracking macros came up.
It did. They acknowledged that using an app or a food journal to track your macros can be helpful, especially at the start. It gives you data, shows you where you're actually at versus where you think you are. It can definitely raise awareness.
So it can be a useful tool for learning or for very specific goals.
Yeah, for awareness, maybe for fine-tuning if you're an elite athlete or have specific medical needs. And this was a big but in the source, the best long-term sustainable approach for most folks isn't necessarily obsessive tracking forever. They strongly suggested focusing instead on building your meals around whole, nutrient-dense foods.
Why is focusing on whole foods often better than just hitting numbers?
Because whole foods are nature's packages. They don't just give you macros, they give you fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, all working together. When you prioritize eating lots of different vegetables, fruits, lean proteins, healthy fats like nuts and seeds, whole grains, you naturally tend to get a pretty good balance of macros plus all that other essential stuff.
It feels more intuitive, maybe. Less like a math equation and more about just eating good quality food.
Exactly. Quality often guides quantity and balance without needing to count every gram. And then the source wrapped it all up with what they called the most important piece of advice for finding your balance.
The ultimate guide. What was it?
Listening to your body.
Listening to your body. Sounds simple, but what does that actually mean? What signals did the source say we should get into?
They mentioned several really practical ones, like how's your energy if you're constantly feeling drained, hitting slumps, even if you're sleeping okay. That's a big signal.
Could mean not enough total food, or maybe not enough carbs for your activity level, or maybe the wrong kind of carbs causing crashes.
Precisely. Or what about hunger and cravings? If you eat a meal and feel ravenous again an hour later or have intense cravings, that meal might have been lacking enough protein, healthy fat, or fiber, the things that really keep you satisfied.
Makes sense. Or for active people, how's your recovery? Are you feeling way sore than usual for way longer? Is your performance tanking in your workouts?
Yes, that's another huge one. Poor recovery can definitely point towards needing more protein for repair or more carbs to replenish energy for the recovery process itself. The source directly linked these signals, energy, hunger, recovery, to your macro intake. They basically said, your body may be telling you that you need to adjust your macros.
That's so empowering. It changes the whole dynamic. Your body isn't just something you force rules onto. It's giving you feedback. Instead of getting lost in conflicting advice, you learn to read your own body's messages about what it needs right now.
It absolutely puts you back in control. You start noticing, okay, when I eat this for lunch, I have great energy all afternoon. When I eat that, I crash. Or when I add more protein after my workout, I feel less sore tomorrow. You become your own experiment using those internal signals to fine-tune things. It's dynamic, not rigid.
This whole deep dive, pulling from wellness waves, has really clarified things for me. That common confusion around carbs, protein, fats.
Yeah.
It feels much less confusing now.
Yeah, it boils down to remembering they're all essential. None of them are inherently bad. They just have different vital jobs, energy, building, supporting functions.
And the big takeaways feel super practical. Like, yes, macros are crucial, but the type really matters, especially for carbs and fats. Choose complex over simple, healthy, unsaturated over artificial transient. Protein is key for recovery, but training is what actually drives the muscle growth.
Right.
And maybe the biggest one. Finding your right balance. It's personal. It depends on your life, your goals, how active you are. There's no single magic number.
And weaving through all of that is the skill of listening to your body, using your energy, your hunger, your recovery as guides. The source made a really strong case for that being your most reliable compass.
So this knowledge, drawn from the source, it really gives you, the listener, the foundation to approach nutrition with more understanding, right? More confidence, less confusion.
Absolutely. It empowers you to move beyond just following rules and start making informed choices that are actually tailored to you and how you feel. You become an active participant in your own health.
So, thinking about that, become your own expert, listening to your body. Here's a final thought. Instead of chasing that elusive, perfect, fixed macro ratio that someone else says is the answer, what if the real goal is simply getting better and better at understanding your own body's signals? Recognizing its changing needs, because they do change day to day, season to season, and just responding intelligently using these fundamental principles we've unpacked today. Something to chew on.